You don't know what you don't know, and you're not responsible for that. It's not a cookie cutter approach or a one size fits all approach when it comes to finance and managing your money. Black people are not the only people that may not have these conversations, that may not have resources, or that experience life events like you just mentioned, like death, divorce, different milestones that causes setbacks, that, causes us to have to start over. That's a human being.
It is.
Our experiences shape our perspective, and it really is the root of how we make our decisions moving forward. Someone in my role is responsible for that. Responsible for giving you an honest or expert opinion or neutral advice that keeps you fixated to your plan. But take that and apply that to financial decisions too. Where does that type of self-harm or self-infliction come from? And it's rooted in a lot of traumatic experiences. When it comes to the financial statistics, millennials are outpacing every other generation with financial stability, savings, preparing for emergencies across the board. Millennials are outpacing.
Are they really?
Yes, they are.
Hey there, Gen Care family. Welcome to the Care Den, where we explore the heartbeat of generational care. Today, we have something very exceptional for you guys. We're going to tell the story of how one woman's vision of sisterhood turned into a movement of community care. I'm excited to have our next guest, Andrea Collins. Andrea is a senior VP at a global top financial institute. She is very passionate about helping people turn their financial dreams into a reality. And she's also here to share some serious money wisdom with the Gen Care family. Andrea, welcome to the Care Den. All right, Andrea, thank you for joining me.
I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. So welcome to the Care Den is what we call this. So the first thing you have to do is, because whoever enters into the Care Den, they have to go into the gem box. Open up the gem box. Pull out a gem and read it out loud. Read the person's name.
I know it's going to be a good one.
Who is that from? Look at the back.
Tiffany Cambridge.
Okay.
Tiffany. Do not fear, for I am with you. Isaiah 41:10. I love it.
Oh.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Seriously. And at the end, you will write a gem as well, and you will leave one in the gem box. So, all right, we're going to talk some good stuff today. It's all about the money. That's what they say.
All about the money, yes.
So how did you get started as being a financial advisor?
Well, I love to tell the story because it was an unconventional path. When I went away to college, my original intention was to just major in art history. I always loved art. I loved studying history and the practicality of it. And when I got to school, just like any parent, they're like, oh, what are you going to do with art? It's just like a stigma that comes along with anything that is artistic. How are you going to provide for yourself? And going to UC Berkeley, for undergrad.
Which is an art school,
It
though.
is.
They're known.
They're known for
art.
They're known for art, for history, for anything that involves civic leadership. Really, the full spectrum on the cutting edge of anything that's developing, whether it's technology, math, science, the full spectrum. It's the #1 public university.
How are you going to make some money?
But how are you going to survive after that? So my mom was like, choose something, that could go with it, or, that you could have a fallback for. So I didn't drop the art history. I chose economics to complement that. And when I graduated, though, I still stood my ground and worked at a museum. Right after graduation. But that job paid less than I did in my work study job before I graduated. And
work study money is not even...
that was not paying bills. That was literally buying...
That was like, I got some
whatever
money.
you want to get from the student store and maybe go to a football game here or there. So I quickly and swiftly came to the resolution that in order to go any further, like in art history, I probably have to have gotten a PhD.
Okay.
Or do advanced studies. So that job probably lasted about 5 or 6 months.
Okay.
And then
were you up north or were you down here?
No, I was here at the Natural History Museum, right across from
right
USC.
across the street.
Yep.
Right.
And so came back to Southern California, and then there was this huge push then, just like there is now, for gender equality, equity in financial services. But, that's across the board in every single sector. But specifically, they were trying to get women involved in wealth management and finance. And so I went to this event called Women for Hire.
Okay.
And all the major brokerage firms were there.
Okay, I do remember the Women for Hire because they were going after any color of women at that time.
Yep. So just women in general. So Women for Hire, all the brokerage firms were there, like Morgan Stanley, UBS, Goldman Sachs, like literally all the major wirehouses.
Okay.
And I submitted my resume. I had a couple of interviews, and I got hired by Morgan Stanley. And so that was 20 years ago. I'm still here. I survived to tell the story. And the rest is history.
And you're like a senior vice president.
Senior vice president.
Another major heavy hitter.
Yes.
And so you're definitely here to tell the story.
Definitely here to tell the story.
And
lots of stories. I have lots of stories.
And I'm laughing at the dance because that was very similar with Naya.
Yeah.
She had did ballet since 2 years old and down to did 12 summers in New York from ABT with Misty Copeland. I mean, so many things, and she was so blessed to do it.
Yeah.
But because she was a dancer, the good thing is she was smart too, such as herself. And I just remember, she was like, oh, I'm not going to college for dance. She was like, well, I'm looking up she started Googling how much money you make.
Yes.
She was going to be a dancer her whole life. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no, I'm rerouting. I'm like, well, you better have a good reroute plan, honey, because all the money.
Right.
I now know why blacks do not do ballet.
Exactly. She had a pivot.
So you better practice on point since 10 years old. Get to pivoting. So as we were going back and forth, and I always say I was grateful for her in that nature because she was smart enough to research it herself.
And willing.
And she was like, I'll always know how to dance. And I'm smart in real life, so I'm going to take this. I'm going after these academic scholarships, which she did.
Right.
So I do understand. I was your mother, too. I was that parent. Like, well, what's going to pay the bills? Okay. So what's your morning money ritual? Like, what do you do in the morning?
So in the morning, I get up really early, and a huge part of this stems back to when I first started in financial services. So before, I had to be at the office before the stock market opened.
Right.
So, for us, it's 6:30. And I still get up really early, maybe between like 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
But I don't hit the ground running. I like to center myself. I like to set my intentions, be more contemplative, think about how I want my day to go, how I want to interact with people, what my goals are as far as, interacting with my clients and what I'm trying to achieve. And then, of course, you got to be aware and informed. So I got to watch the news, see what's going on, not only in our city, but across the world, so I have something to talk about. I read a lot. I read a lot of different publications online, just so you have like different points of references.
And have those uncomfortable conversations
those conversations. You want to be informed and be able to bring information to your clients or whoever you're serving. And so that starts with being intentional about how you gather information, the information that you're taking in, if it's from reputable sources, and then how you're able to pass that along and pivot. Yeah.
What's probably like one of the wildest financial myth that you have to like debunk your clients from when they come in, like someone says all the time that is really not probably true?
There are a few things. A lot of people feel very discouraged about starting late.
Okay.
They feel like they should know more than what they actually do.
Okay.
So I always try to like sort of set the tone and let people know like, you don't know what you don't know, and you're not responsible for that. Once you do know, of course, then you can do better and take the information that you have and apply that to your life. But it's never too late to get started. Okay. So I think a lot of that sort of self-doubt hinders people from taking action, and then not feeling confident in what they know or what they should be doing. A lot of that could be alleviated by talking to an advisor, talking to a trusted person or creating a trusted team around you that gives you solid advice and holds you accountable in accomplishing things.
Like, how is there an age limit? I guess that's another thing. Is there actual age limit where your vesting window is over?
It depends. It depends on what the goal is. You know what I mean? Because it's not a cookie cutter approach or one size fits all approach when it comes to finance and managing your money. Everybody has different goals. Everybody has a different time frame. Everybody has different resources that they're working with. And so it's very, very subjective, but it's never too late. I love
that because especially in the Black community, we're not educated properly as far as investing, or then sometimes we are very educated. Got to start over. Divorces, bankruptcies, you lose different things, whatever the case may be, and then you will get discouraged.
But that's life, you know what I mean?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So
life happens.
That's another myth too. I think a lot of times in our community, we're like, Black people don't know this, or we don't teach each other that, or talk to this about, whatever with our children. And a lot of that has to do with, the resources or what's available, to us to work with. But in the industry that I work in, I work with every type of client. I work with all races, all cultures, all religions, all backgrounds, all educational backgrounds.
Wow.
And there are certain things that are just human nature.
Yes.
Black people are not the only people that may not have these conversations, that may not have resources, or that experience life events like you just mentioned, like death, divorce, different milestones that causes setbacks, that, causes us to have to start over. That's a human being thing.
It is. But I know a lot of times I have so many friends and they're like, they get discouraged. Even for me at one point, I was like, I'm not putting in that 401k anymore. I'm not. Even for me, like, I know I had to restart. And you were around at the time, but I had to restart because I had went through a life change, unfortunately. And I remember, like, because part of that divorce was I had to pay out my 401k. And I was ticked off. And I remember, like, I'm not putting any more money back in there. And I waited a few years before I even put money back in there. Because I was more in my feelings. And I had the money to do it, but I was probably angry. And I was like, I'll just work harder and figure something else out and put it somewhere else, whatever the case may be. And I know you don't always have to put it in a 401k, but that's a good place
to start. But let's talk about that too, because, again, that's not a male-female thing, because oftentimes you hear that story maybe coming from a male perspective. When there's divorce, the male has to pay out, maybe half of their retirement or alimony. And, on the flip side, this happened to you, so that's a human being thing.
It is. You are correct.
And you can't ignore, or at least someone in my position, how that affects a person. How our experiences shape our perspective, and it really is the root of how we make our decisions moving forward. So whereas someone like you may go for years without contributing to their 401k or retirement plan, there's a reason behind that.
It was mental. For
the
me,
experience you had really felt damaging. You probably felt violated. You felt like someone was taking something from you that you worked very hard for and was able to receive at a very, pivotal point in your life. So acknowledging all of those things, someone in my role is responsible for that. Responsible for giving you an honest or expert opinion or neutral advice that keeps you fixated to your plan. And so
I agree with you, because for me, I think it wasn't so much entitled because we were married. So he was entitled. There's no difference if, like you said, the man and a woman. That wasn't it. I think for me, it was the drama and the headache of the aspect
that comes along with it.
That came along with it. And it wasn't that I made more money than him. It was that money had gone overseas. So it was more money hidden than anything. at that time. Originally, if we would have gone off of him being in the United States when he was playing, it was a very different story.
Yep.
But now it's like 10 years later, this is what's going on. This is where we're at. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. And I don't, because I'm not a person like people like, oh, well, why the man can't have, that's not true, because sometimes that is the reality.
Exactly.
And and sometimes neither party wants anything, and you go your way, whatever the case may be. But I do think for me I think it was traumatic. Because the kids were being affected more. And it was like, okay, well, what's next? What are we getting ready to do? And
how do I move on from here?
Yeah, because we had multiple properties as well. And now you got a severance that...
There's so much to unpack.
And now we're going into a full-blown recession. Everything's crashing. Because at that time, the stock market had literally crashed. People falling. It was that era. Like 2012, 24, it was done.
That was brutal for a lot of people. And
people didn't recover.
There are a lot of things people don't realize that, because we often look at like, okay, self-harm in the form of like from a medical perspective. Like if someone has an addiction, you know what I mean? Or maybe like an alcohol addiction, a drug addiction, or maybe even, inflicting self-harm or bodily harm, through attempted suicide or any of those things. But take that and apply that to financial decisions too. Where does that type of self-harm or self-infliction come from? And it's rooted in a lot of traumatic experiences. So then when you combine those actions, with what's going on outside of you. You know what I mean? So let's say if someone has an addiction, and then we're in a recession or a high inflationary environment. Like there are certain things that one thing begets the other and just compounds, and it builds as a snowball effect. It can be very destructive, so.
And sometimes no coming back from it. And because that was an amazing analogy, because that was like not just my world, it was a lot of my friends' world. We were like building and trying to move up that corporate ladder and doing everything that that we're told to do.
The right way, right?
Like, because it's not the right way. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Exactly.
Way you get to it. And but we're trying to stay on that straight and narrow path, and we're looking like... But
then, and then also what we didn't mention is what comes along with that sometimes is embarrassment. Or shame, or, I feel like people think this of me and I have to uphold this type of image, and what are people going to think if I tell them the full story, And
I was probably that person, because I had to file bankruptcy behind what had occurred, because we had 14 properties. And not just going to my family, because I don't come from that. It was very structured in the household, but most importantly, I had to go to my job, because as a pharmaceutical sales rep, you cannot file bankruptcy because they think you're going to steal the samples.
Exactly.
And you have a company car and a company credit card.
And so you are literally on Front Street. Like everything about you is public. Same thing with me. Everything about me is public.
Everything is public, so now I have to go sit before a board.
And explain.
In order to now I have to pay out somebody from a divorce, but to keep a job so I can keep a roof over my children's head. And that in itself was a lot. And it was just embarrassing. And I was like, oh God. And I'm going before white people. I'm like the only black girl, literally, and definitely in the whole West Coast. Like on top pharmaceutical sales rep, but I'm literally like that only person. I'm like, they're gonna fire me, but they didn't.
They didn't. You know why? Because you weren't the first. And you were not going to be the last.
Absolutely.
But we have that, that indescribable and invisible amount of pressure. I think that not only we put on ourselves as a minority, but minority in two different ways, gender and race. So it's a lot of pressure, I think, that we inflict upon ourselves. For various reasons.
We're always trying to survive and be defensive. And sometimes it's okay to be just okay. Yes. So, I know you're a millennial.
Oh, gosh. I am.
By default.
By default. I just
like
missed it by like 2 years.
You
2 years, the hair on my chinny chin.
And I know you want to be on this
I
side,
really
the
want to be a Gen
X.
X so bad. In my heart of hearts, I'm a Gen X.
And you are.
I am.
I'm gonna be honest with you. And when I realized you're a millennial,
I know it probably shocked you.
it totally shocked me. And it was two reasons.
Yeah.
Our children grew up together.
Mm-hmm.
Our sons did. And you were so mature for your age. And I knew you were younger, but at one point I thought you were like 3 or 4 years younger.
Okay.
When we first met, which is like 15. No, they were 4.
Yeah,
so 16 years
16
ago.
years ago.
So, and the moment we met, we out there doing the affirmations and everything.
I know.
And
In the drumming circle.
in the drumming circle.
Yep.
And our kids had already jailed from the first couple of days, and we just met. And I'm going to table that because I'm going to bring something back to that.
Okay.
But I did not know you were a millennial, so I'm going to table how the kids met in that relationship faster in a second. So, what would you tell your 25-year-old self? What kind of financial advice would you tell your 25-year-old self? Because you are an old soul.
Yes.
I mean, so you are really, to me, you are Gen X.
Gen X, but I think a huge part of that has to do with even the industry I work in.
Okay.
So when you work in like wealth management and trading and finance, it's very, very serious. You know, you're not taken serious unless you have a certain disposition about yourself. And especially working with people that a lot of times have gone through life events that you haven't even seen before. For instance, I advise people all the time about retirement. I've never retired a day in my life. So I've never lost a spouse. And like, I could go down the list. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's just the reality of it. And most of the people that you're working with, they haven't. You know, same thing with medical practitioners, you know, surgeons, they're operating and diagnosing people and they've never literally experienced those things themselves, but they're educated in it and they work with enough people to where they're able to diagnose things. Same thing with me. And I think that that's, you know, where the difference comes in. I don't work with, my career didn't start working under millennials or people within my same generation. I was trained by people that were part of the silent generation, you know, which are those that were born during the Great Depression, baby boomers and Gen X. And so that makes a huge difference in how you look at life and how you make decisions. But it doesn't take away from, there's two sides of it. You know, you ask what would I tell my 25-year-old self? Because my 25-year-old self was a mother, had a child. I was working at a major brokerage firm, working with people and brokers, like I said, that were old school brokers.
Right, old school.
You know, like taking orders, trading, you know, like the what you see, like starting at 5 and were very, very serious, wrote everything down in a notebook, like the old school.
The brown books.
Yes, what you see in the movie, like that type of environment. And I don't take it for granted because that's where like I learned my work ethic. I learned how to take everything serious and how to treat clients and how to have a certain perspective and be like laser beam focused all the time and not make errors. But the flip side is that I am the oldest of the children in my family, raised by a single mother, raised in South LA. There's certain survival techniques and habits, whether good or bad, that you learn and you acquire and you hold on to from childhood all the way through adulthood.
Generational curses.
Generational things and habits and maybe even the unknowns about how to be financially responsible that you sort of have to break in the midst of working around that environment. Okay. You know, so my 25-year-old self, I would say, doesn't matter how much money you make to be disciplined in your spending, be conscious about your credit. Be conscious about contributing to your 401k because it's time that you give yourself, that runway that you have, that's more important than choosing the right day, let's say, to make an investment or something. The length of time that you give yourself is what compounds and builds up, and little things become big things, good or bad.
Good or bad.
Good or bad. The little things become big things, so if you do a little bit, even when you have a little bit and just stick to that, that is what makes the difference. That's what I would tell myself, to stay disciplined and to be very intentional regardless of what's going on around you, personally and professionally.
Give yourself grace.
Yep. And stick to you. Be committed more to yourself and your future self than the immediate circumstances.
And that probably comes with maturity.
Hindsight is 20/20,
right? I would
right?
say it probably comes with maturity, because at 25, you're out of college a couple of years. If you're in debt, you're just trying to find a job.
Yep. And I was a different 25-year-old. Some 25-year-olds are single. They're just career oriented. They're not a parent.
Right.
Some 25-year-olds may have multiple children at that time, and they may not have a career. They have a 9-to-5, or maybe they're in school.
Right.
Every 25-year-old is different.
But yourself. But
for myself, having a responsibility of a child, having a career that I'm starting, is like, stick to the discipline regardless of what's going on around you personally and professionally.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're still a millennial. No, I'm just kidding.
By default on paper, but who's looking on?
I agree. No one's looking. And how you carry yourself, you're not. And millennials, no disrespect.
The one thing I am proud. Okay, so I'm proud to be a millennial in this sense. When it comes to the financial statistics,
yes,
millennials are outpacing every other generation with financial stability, savings, preparing for emergencies across the board. Millennials are outpacing.
Are they really?
Yes, they are. They spend more money on experiences and not just like lifestyle things like trips and materialistic things. Yes, millennials are now outpacing. So that great wealth transfer that's going to happen in a few years, where it goes between Gen X and the millennials, will probably handle that transfer a little bit more efficiently than Gen X. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you might be correct. Okay, but I think
it's only because of where you guys fall in financial experiences, economic experiences. That you guys experience a lot of financial setbacks in the economy.
We did. We've hit
so many.
So I know for a fact I've been in 2 recessions, and I'm only 50.
Yeah.
I mean, and
the .com bubble and burst, and like all of those things, the housing crisis, all those things happen at pivotal points in your generations.
Yeah, that's been twice, and I've capitalized on it, and then I lost on it as well, in my era. So yes, and we also are in, I think So we always say the goal is to make more money than our parents. Mm-hmm. I don't know if our children can make more money than us, meaning that Gen Z. I think they're bright and they can pivot very well, but jobs are scarce right now. Things are a little different. I came out, I think I made, my first job was, corporate job was Hallmark cards. And for 2 years before I went to pharmaceutical sales, and you have to go into some form of outside sales to get into pharmaceutical sales. And I remember company card, corporate credit card. I was like, whoa, I was like, they gave me a platinum American Express. Oh, y'all want to ride?
You had arrived, right?
Yeah, I had everything. But I remember I had friends who were like, coming out of medical school and everything. I'm not making this up. But they had given me, I was making like $42,000 in 1995, 96. Yep. And I'm like, and my friend's like, girl, I'm making $17,000. I mean, I'm like, what?
Yep. And so your generation has the higher amount of debt when it comes to like student loans, credit card debt, all.
And I am debt-free from my student loans. They are zero. And no, I did not get any forgiveness. I need y'all to understand that. Biden, when he decided to do that, I was financially responsible. Yep. And I had doubled and tripled my payments and paid them off. So, yes. And then in the master's program I was in, the Abbott Laboratories I worked for, they had paid for it. So it worked out well.
You were one of the lucky ones.
Yes. So that's to say, I am very blessed to say that. So now let's talk about team budget spreadsheet or team money like app. So when you're doing do you do like a actual hand budget sheet, or do you use
Me
an
personally?
app? You personally.
Oh, I like, and see,
Like-
this is probably the non-millennial side of me. I like to I still write everything down.
Right.
Like with a pen and paper, or
Okay.
like I'll maybe go to Excel. I'm not an app
I'm not an app person.
person.
I need to see.
I need to see it. Like I need to actually see everything laid out right in front of me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Okay. What's your thoughts of should women date up or date down, or does it even matter?
As financially, you mean, from a
Yes,
financial standpoint?
financial.
I think that's a tricky question because there's so much disparity right now in, wages.
Yes.
When it comes to men and women, educational backgrounds, and just even opportunity.
Right.
Because I think there's a huge push, or there has been a huge push, to make things equitable across the board in every single sector. So a lot of corporations are hiring women and selecting minority women over the minority male, and it creates an economic disparity in the household. So I think that is a very challenging question to answer.
I agree, and it would have to be for that particular person.
Yeah.
I do agree, because to me, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I think it depends on, do you come together? If everyone's working
and contributing,
yes, it's a completely different thing. If you're just not working. Because somebody's always going to do better than me, do better than you.
It will turn.
It'll turn. And I don't mean just dating. You're going to have friends who do better than you. So do you I don't want to be their friend?
Yeah, no.
That's the thing. And I think social media has taken that part of it and made it be something that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if somebody does this, then they're not a man. If the woman does this, they're not a woman. And I'm like, no, that's just not true.
We live in a day and age where it takes both at this point. Like, it takes two.
It takes four. We need 4 incomes up in this house. So
two while you're awake and 2 while you're asleep.
Literally. 2 and 2.
Yes.
So that's it. So, and I think, yes, I agree with you. It is a touchy situation. It's a weird.
But the not working part, no, I would just scratch that one off the list.
Okay, I agree. So I was like,
the aspirational
what advice? Yes.
bucket is not.
Well, especially you're older. Like, what are you going to tell them if they don't want to work? What are you supposed to tell them?
There's nothing you could do at that point.
No. And I think that comes from maybe low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want anyone around me who we can't grow together.
Or it's not actively doing something. Yes.
Or like whatever the case may be. And I think the way that this world is set up, we literally have to have, you need multiple streams of income.
You have to.
And we live in California.
So you can survive here, you can survive anywhere. That's what I always tell people. Yep.
And you can be rich. Yep. In some places,
if you can survive here, tax-wise, financially, then you could survive in any other state in America at this point.
I pay so much money in taxes.
I know.
And down to just payroll taxes.
Yeah, so think about that. Somebody with just aspirations or potential, no.
Yeah, no. Right. Because someone we were, my executive producer writes the questions, but we always have our dialogue so that they know what's going on. But I was stating, when we were going back and forth, it was the whole thing of a lot of things is people's preference and what they like and what they don't like. But I do agree with this. It's like, I don't think it matters. Yeah. I think
or you mean who makes more or less?
Who makes more?
No, as long as everybody's contributing.
Because why is it okay for the woman to marry up and like for the man to be like, so a woman to stay at home?
Well, I think the man that you're with should want to be with a woman. Well, if this is your preference.
That's it.
If a man prefers to be with a woman that is a go-getter and out, you know what I mean? Like you know?
I know exactly what you mean.
What's wrong with a man?
For everyone.
What's wrong with a man wanting that for himself, you know?
Right.
So,
like me and my husband, we encourage each other.
Yeah.
We push each other.
Yeah.
Like we root for each other.
Me and mine compete about who got up the earliest. Because he gets up early too. We both get up between 4:45 and 5. And if I come downstairs 1 or 2 minutes late, oh, you're up early today. I'm like, what are you? I'm up early every day. But we compete. Yes.
And that's how I
But
feel.
not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way. But that's how me and my husband, we compete. Like, we don't really compete because he goes to the gym and I do not. And so I'm a fake worker out. I'm like, I'm like, all right, let me get to going. I'll go for about a month strong. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good for about 2 more months. He does not miss a day. He can hang all night. I'm looking like, he was like, I know you're not getting up. No, I'm not.
No.
Do a little push-ups and sit-ups for
That's
me.
enough.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Like, hook me up. So, yes. So,
but yeah, I think that's healthy competition, and that should exist within relationships. You know,
Julius is my best friend. Like I know Ken is your best friend. Like, and I mean, when you marry in the later part of our lives, you got to be happy in real life.
Exactly.
Because you don't have to be.
You don't have to. You don't have to. You didn't have to make that choice.
No.
You know?
So you want to be in that space, and you want to be around someone that you like in real life. And so I think so many people say, this is my relationship goal, this is my relationship goal. I'm like, nobody's relationship is my relationship goal.
At all. At all. It's what our goals are today, this week.
Like these are our
this
goals.
month, this year, and sometimes today. Can we just achieve the goal today? You know, because you can't make anybody else your measuring stick.
No.
That is a recipe for failure.
Because, it's days me and him could be arguing. It's days we're not. It's days that people are like, oh, I just like your relationship goes. I'm like, no. And I mean, I think me and him have a great relationship, but it's still, no.
Yes. And it's a constant, you're constantly working at it. But that's like with anything that you value in life, you know, you're constantly trying to refine it, constantly edifying it, constantly breaking it apart and seeing how we can make this better, you know. So.
And it's day by day.
Every
and that's
day.
How it goes. Every day. Relationship is a job every day. Yes. So, question, millennial. No, just kidding.
You love that.
TikTok financial advice. Is that a friend or foe?
You know, I was just having a conversation with somebody about this the other day. These finfluencers, which is the new term, I guess I should say. I'm not a fan.
Okay.
Only because I just felt, because I've been doing this for quite some time now. You know, you don't get to say you've been doing something for 20, 30 years without actually doing it for that amount of time. And in that amount of time, I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of what we consider to be sort of, threats or things that could really be detrimental to the general public clients or anyone taking advice from someone that's not either trained or licensed to give advice. Now don't get me wrong, you get advice from your friends or you figure out like, what's the latest greatest, like, or what are you guys doing? But that I wouldn't say stop there. Let that be like your starting point of curiosity.
And I think financial advice is like the Bible.
Yeah.
Meaning you got to read it and know it for yourself.
For yourself. And
so even if a pastor is up there, you
could call out what's right and what's wrong.
Right.
Yes. And
you did your research.
If you did your research, if you have a relationship, you equated it to the Bible. If you have a relationship with God, and you, like you said, have done your research and you've read it for yourself, then you can call out what's right and what's wrong. It's up to you what you do with that information after the fact, but at least you know enough to say that's not right or that doesn't sound right. Same thing with financial advice.
Absolutely.
Like you may be interested in everything that's on social media, but again, let that be your starting point if you don't know, to at least do your own due diligence, your own research, to ask multiple people, to ask like an actual advisor. The one good thing I would say that came out of that, or the financial or the finfluencers, was during the pandemic. I feel like that really opened up the floodgates and broke down a lot of barriers or invisible barriers where people in the past did not feel like they could become investors, that they could participate in the market, that they had to be like these multimillionaire or billionaires to even be able to have investment accounts. And so the one good thing about social media and TikTok and Instagram and all the other social media outlets is that it spread information very rapidly because people had the time at that point to actually sit down and learn something new. So, but there, like with anything, there are people that take advantage of people out there.
Because they're not really trained and they're making up stuff because they have the following.
They have the following in the platform. And so that is where you have to be aware and do your due diligence. Not everyone's bad. A lot of people have good intentions. And some people do have good intentions with just sharing the information that they know or what worked for them. But that becomes very touchy because what works for some people may not work for others. And it just gets very complicated when it comes to money, when it comes to money, taxes, and everything.
Because you have to have the information on the total package, not partially.
Yep.
So what's your thoughts with crypto? Do you think it's here to stay or it's passing?
Don't nail me to a cross for this.
I won't.
I'm not a fan of that either.
I'm not either.
It's not regulated. And anything that does not have regulation or any type of accountability metrics set up for it is very speculative. I think that a lot of people that participated in it at the onset have already utilized their exit strategy, and everybody else is just left behind. And most of those people have not dealt with the tax implications of having a large influx of resources and how to navigate that. So I think that's where the danger comes in. There's too many unknowns.
Yes.
And we saw the rush into it, like similar to what somebody would do with like an IPO. But you have to think with an IPO, like those companies are heavily vetted and go through a process for an extensive amount of time to even be then introduced to the market. Like they've been a private company for a long time and, can really like open the books and show.
This is
and prove themselves. So now they're being introduced to the general public with crypto or Bitcoin. It's just like there's too many unknowns personally for me. But to each his own. I know a lot of people they love it. They're into it. They swear by it.
And I'll share my story a tad bit because I am not into crypto. So I like to gamble. Not like I don't have a habit or nothing, but I
like to gamble.
Yeah, I love to gamble. I love to play the tables.
Me too.
I bet on the games and different things like that. I do. So,
we don't have a habit though.
No, there's no habits, but we love. So, what happened was, I think I was betting online or something like one of those platforms or something, and then they were closing, and they paid me back in crypto. And I didn't know they paid me back in crypto. So about 6-8 months later, I'm like, hey, where's my money at?
Yeah.
And it was a few $1,000s. They're like, oh, it's in crypto. I'm like, no. It was in Bitcoin. I was like, no, I need my money.
Give me my money.
My money. And so,
dollars.
Yes.
And
like
cents.
U.S.
Dollars.
U.S. dollars. So
and see, that's the non-millennial part of me. Is like, I still want to see.
I need to see my stuff. Yes. I need to see it.
All this imaginary stuff I can't. I think, a huge part of that comes from when, in the beginning but when that 08-09 crisis happened.
Oh. And went on for 4 years.
And all of that was around the whole, Ponzi schemes and Bernie Madoff. And there were a lot of clients that had invested in things like that. And that's when I realized that it could say, I'm just going to give an arbitrary number, imaginary number, $15 million on this screen. But as of today, with these schemes and scams, even though I can't erase your balance off this screen, like you don't have anything. It's just a number on a screen.
And you had clients
that were affected by that.
Yes.
And that was the day that I realized, like, wow, this is literally a number on a screen. Like
and
yesterday,
you were still in your 20s.
In my 20s.
Late
and I'm
20s,
like, yesterday, I'm like, yesterday, this really meant 15 million. Yeah. And today it says 15 million, but
it's
I
zero.
can't give you nothing, not $1. And I don't care what your statement says. I don't care what it says when you log in. And that's how I feel about.
And that's what happened to my 401k. Like part of it, like at one point, because it was high, because I was invested so much in so many pharmaceuticals and all these new drugs and everything that was going on. And it was like womp, womp, womp. And I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And then it started climbing back up. And then I had all these profit shares from a big major company because we went through they went through a really bad market event, but not me. Me and another person on the East Coast was the only two that was like thriving out here. My area was Beverly Hills, and I was like killing it. So they gave me all these shares. At the time, these shares was like 12, 13. I can say it. It was Merck Pharmaceuticals. And Merck had like plummeted from a bad market event. They give me, I think, like, as I'm kicking butt, so they give me 10,000 shares. Those shares go to like I think like almost $800,000 within like a couple of years. I didn't even realize what they had gave me.
Yeah.
Instead of giving me a bonus, they gave me the
The
shares. They
yeah.
were like $10 a share. They went to like $80 a share within a couple of years.
Yeah.
But that was like considered the bonus.
Yeah, and that's so equity compensation,
Yes,
and
that's
which is
what
a
it-
huge
yes,
thing
it
now
was
with tech
huge.
companies, and most tech companies are startups. You know,
And-
give bonuses in the
yes,
form of
and
equity
it was two of
compensation.
us.
Yeah.
And they had this big meeting, and people go through all these layoffs and everything. And then eventually, I go through a layoff with them before I go to the next pharmaceutical company. And I remember like 2 years working for the new pharmaceutical company, and they go like, "Hey, what do you want to do with these shares?" I was like, "What do you mean what I want to do with these shares?" Because I had been ordered to pay my ex-husband, but I'm not knowing
That's there.
that they had included the shares
yeah.
because I released the account, not even knowing. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
I want my money.
Right. No, I know.
Again, run me my money.
Yes.
Like, what is going on here? And so, so when that company was closing, they give me this money in crypto. I'm like, what? But it was a blessing because I had a Bitcoin account that I knew nothing about. I ended up getting, I think it was like $1,200 they put in there, and I ended up getting like $40,000. And
So you cashed it out.
What? I did, because when I found out where
some
it was.
people are not cashing out. That's the thing.
Well, because they're interested.
Yeah.
I'm old school.
You have no interest, right?
I wanted to know where the $1,200 was because it was just my cushion that I would bet on like games on Sundays and stuff. And so I'm like, why can't bet? They was like, no, you can't. You gotta. We're closing this platform.
Yeah.
Go over here. And I'm like, what? So I was like, oh, this is a scam. They got me. But I'm like, then they're like, no. So they sent me everything. So I had to download the app. I was ticked off about this.
Yeah.
And then they had to vet me and all this stuff. So I was like, they're trying to steal my money, but they didn't. But that 1,200 turned to 40. But that's the fault. I'm still not defending. I'm not a fan.
No, so a lot of people are
grateful.
like Odell Beckham. Didn't he get his?
I think so.
His salary in Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I'm not I'm not even interested.
I mean, as I said, to each his own. Some people are committed to it. They wholeheartedly believe that that's the way
to go.
There's a lot that has to occur in order for that to become a universal monetary system.
And you are licensed.
Yes.
And
since
all
2004.
Yes. All platforms.
Yes.
And so you are very knowledgeable and very aware. And so definitely.
So that was not advice, by the way. That was not a do not or do
nothing.
Go ahead.
Yes. This is not an advice. This is a conversation.
Right.
And if you notice, I asked her what was her thoughts.
My preference.
And her preference. So yes. So another preference. Side hustles versus savings.
I like side hustles.
You know I do.
Well, why can't you do both?
You can have both. Like if it was a preference.
No. I'm always going to be, I think that we just can't get away from that. You could have your straight corporate 9 to 5, then you could, there's always something entrepreneurial, but we're creative people.
Right. But do you think like, for me, I think a Gen Z would take a side hustle before a savings.
Oh, yes.
Because they think they rich, honey. They're money rich.
They're in the moment, like
Yes.
today, like they're all about the now.
Right. And they're very bright and intelligent.
Yes.
But I do think, and honestly, I think I've been a entrepreneur my whole life because my father owned candy stores and lounges and so many different things. I remember at 5 years old, like, hey, charging people when they came in his bar. You want some Coke, Sprite? Bam, 25 cents. But I didn't look at it that way because I wanted to go play Miss Pac-Man or Pac-Man or Donkey Kong. You know, I was like on the machines in there. And then later I tell my dad, I said, I think you were like breaking childhood labor laws.
Right.
I'm behind there tapping people.
Right.
I'm over. He was like, well, he wasn't pouring liquor. We laugh about it. But then also, even the candy stores, I would take all his product from my granny's basement and I would set up on the block. And then he'll go, well, now you need to take this back.
Right.
And right. Now let me show you how to
really do it.
How to really do it. Let me show you how to re-up and take, this is your profit. This is this. I'm like 7, 8, 9 years old at this time.
Yeah.
So as I started going, I remember like I learned how to do nails, put perms in people's hair. And I have childhood friends and they were like, remember, they was like, my hair hasn't been the best since you did it.
Yep.
I say I was 12 years old, 13, because I wasn't interested.
But you were just doing it.
I wanted to make money.
That's what I'm saying. Like you've always been entrepreneurial.
Yes.
But when you think about it, even when you were in pharmaceutical sales, that's still entrepreneurial. Even though you're behind a major corporation or label, your sales and the outcome is still based on what you're putting into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I knew even when I started Ultra Care Services, I was like, oh, I can kill this.
Yeah.
I was like, this is what I do. And I love to help people. I've been a giver.
But I feel like that is what is like what's rooted in being an entrepreneur is the fascination with people. Like when my sister and I opened a yoga studio, it's the fascination with people and understanding what makes. And
you opened the first black
yoga studio in Inglewood. Yes,
and you did, and you did, and it was going, and then COVID, and then it just did not.
It's okay though.
But it was great. I went.
It was great, and I think it was a wonderful attempt in a community that at that moment was not necessarily demographically ready for that type of discretionary.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Because I wasn't. I went for you.
Yeah.
And your sister, I really did. Yeah. I literally went for you guys.
But that's okay, because I feel like now the city has transformed so much that it's ready, you know? So
you're like a trendsetter.
Yes.
Yes, that's what they say.
It's set trends.
That's just the norm.
Everywhere we go.
Everywhere we go. But I will say this. We know I'm very high strung, and I always got something going on.
Yeah, you do.
And I was like excited to do it because I was like, I need my zen. Yes. I wanted to go. I wanted to be in that space. Yeah. And even now, when I look back, like when all these Facebook memories and things come up, I laugh at myself of. I've been doing affirmations for way before Facebook. So 14, 15 years on Facebook.
Before it was a trending topic.
It was a trend.
Yeah.
And I said, this is why so many people came to me for advice per se, because I was speaking things into existence people. And pouring into them without even knowing.
Totally.
Before it became a thing in that nature. So, and that's why I say, so with the yoga, you guys poured that into me because I love hot yoga. Yeah. I'll go and I love to just do different things like that. Just self-care.
Yeah.
I love a good self-care. So a couple other things I am going to ask. I want to bring this up. So how you and I met was from Nolan and Dylan.
Yes.
And Dylan is your firstborn.
My firstborn.
Nolan is my secondborn. Dylan is now a junior at Morehouse University. Nolan is a junior at Southern University.
We love the HBCU.
And we love our HBCU.
Even though I didn't go to one, I wanted to, but that's okay.
I gave up a PW. I gave up UCLA.
I went to the number one public university
to go to
in the
Southern
country.
University.
UC Berkeley, go Bears. Be Stanford.
Yeah, please do. And then so I did, and I remember my counselor like, "Oh, you're not going to be anything." She was like, "Why would you go to that?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I'm going."
I will say this: Howard was my first choice, though. That's where I wanted to go to Howard.
Well, Howard was my first choice, and my mother told me that I could not go to school with one of my dearest friends, Dana, doctor, who is now a physician and a surgeon, actually.
Okay.
And Howard was her first choice, and her acceptance got lost, and she got into so many schools, but she wanted to go to Howard. And so my mom was like, "Oh, it's time to break up. Enough is enough." And I was sharing this story to my staff the other day. I said, all of our friends went to a HBCU, but we were part of that different world era. Yeah. And we were serious about it. Yeah. And so we went there. So now Dylan and Nolan are like the best of friends at the time. They are like inseparable, little cuties, just handsome.
We have the pictures to prove it.
Yes, we do. They were so adorable. And you had never let your son go to anyone's home.
I know exactly what you're about to say. Yep.
Spend the night anywhere. And I'm going to share the story because this is a part of the healthcare journey too. Dylan had type 1 diabetes, juvenile diabetes, and he had a machine attached.
Yes. the insulin pump at
yes,
the time. Mm-hmm.
yes. And so it was all new to you.
Yeah.
It had been from a baby, but it was still all new to you. And he wanted to spend the night so bad at the house. And you were like, no, originally.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were talking, and I kept saying, why? I'm not going to do nothing. So you shared the story with me. I said, I'm in pharmaceutical sales. And I had just launched the diabetes drug. It was for type 2.
Yeah.
But it was still...
But you understood. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I understood because I had to learn type 1 and type 2.
Yeah.
So being a pharmaceutical sales rep, you're very knowledgeable about all different disease states. And I was a different rep because I was only specialty.
Yeah.
Endocrinologist, nephrologist, gastroenterologist, as well as cardiologist. So I only did specialty. In all my 25 years, I never called on a internal medicine doctor in my life, which is unheard of with a career of mine. So I remember, and I'm like, no, I promise. And we were going, and you were like, okay. And I was like, it was like, well, I'm going to call and make sure. Yeah. Because you had already trained Dylan at a very young age. What to do.
Yeah. Because he was diagnosed literally 1 week after he turned 3 years old.
And now he's 4 years old. At that point.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I know for years, my house was the only house that Dylan could spend the night.
You can attest to that, and I will back you up and say no, because it was so serious. Yes. And a lot of people don't understand the difference between type 1 and type 2. Type 1 being insulin dependent, having counting carbohydrates, giving insulin injections, or making sure they're taking enough insulin. It's serious, especially when you have a little kid.
So I followed every rule. Yep. But I understood it. But
you understood.
I understood. And you trusted me. So I thank you for that. Yes, and that's why I said I was going to pencil that, because I wanted to bring that up. I thank you for that. And now, even now, like last year, the kids spent homecoming together. They still have a relationship. Yep.
And I love that. I love you for that. And that's how you know it's real. I love you
too. And
it's been so long.
It's been so long, and we don't have to talk every day.
Nope.
We still pick up as if we never lost touch. You recently got married.
Yes, and you were there.
I was there, and it was beautiful. It was a star-studded event, and so you're married to a major executive producer and everything, and founder of so many R&B people, and but it was just so authentic. You can feel the love in the room. You can feel it. And how are you adapting to marriage life? Because you're already older, set in your ways.
Yes. I think people don't talk about that enough. When we celebrate our anniversary, I'm like, when we toasted, I'm like, we made it. And I'm not trying to be funny.
You're not.
No, it's like, I don't think they think, if you get married later in life, it's easier or smooth sailing. Not necessarily.
It's worse.
Especially when it's a blended family, when both people have children and still children that are living in the home.
Yes.
Not that it's a bad situation. It's just about blending and adapting and meshing everything together. And when you've been doing things your way for decades,
correct,
like such a long time, and you've been a decision maker and the one that is, calling the shots, and you have your routine, inviting someone into your space, I think people take it for granted how that feels.
And how challenging it is.
Yep. How it's a daily effort in a good way.
And it's not a bad thing, but it is. Because you want to do it, but it is. It requires a lot of introspection and like self-reflection too. And I call myself out a lot. Yes.
Like why are you acting like this?
But I also think the spouse and the husband and the wife, I should say, we don't think about that part of it. Like, everyone thought me and my husband had lived together. They was like, oh, you and Juju live together? I was like, we don't.
We don't, yeah.
We did not.
Yeah.
But we were a family. Like, we did family things. Yeah. Our kids were blending. But like you said, you got one. Dylan is headed to college. In college. Naya was headed to college. Yep. You have things. Julius has an older daughter who was graduating from Berkeley. Yeah. So his firstborn, she's a bear, and she just got her master's at UC San Diego. So she went through both UC systems and that part, and so she was at Berkeley at that time. Yeah. She was like, I think, her freshman or sophomore year, because she's 2 years old. So she was her sophomore year. Naya's headed to college, and we're like, oh. okay, we're getting married now. Like, wait, we do need to move in together.
Yeah.
And
So same with us. We didn't live together prior.
Yeah, we didn't either. Yeah. And I think, and that's, and I mean, and I don't give that advice. I think you have to do what works best for each other. It wasn't no, we didn't have a reason why we didn't.
Same, right.
I just think we just did it. And then now Julius has, and then I have still Nolan, and then Julius, I have a baby.
Yeah.
Another bonus daughter, and she's 1 at the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's take this journey. And it's not a hard journey. It's a come to reality journey.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when you're thinking about each other, you're thinking about you and him.
Mm-hmm.
You're not thinking about the kids. Not that it's not. Forget the kids. That's not it. So I ain't saying F them kids.
Well, that's what my husband said.
Yeah, I know. My husband said it all the time. Juju good for saying F them kids. You know, but
that must be a universal man thing.
Yes, but it wasn't. It really wasn't that. It was mainly you're just in love.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're just thinking about me and you.
Yeah,
but when you older, it comes with more baggage, more
baggage and things that you've accumulated, property, things, clothes, like it's so many different things.
My closet space.
Yes, it's
I didn't want to give up that closet space. I mean, I just didn't.
And then how quickly do you do that? You know what I mean? How quickly do you just throw away everything and start over? Do you move into one person's place, or do you get something brand new? Or those are all things that someone that's professional or been accomplished, you've acquired things. So now you have to figure out how do you combine those things, or how do you keep some things separate? And everybody has a different sort of path.
Absolutely. And it's whatever works for you, works for you. And I know for us, like Julius had a home and I had a home. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, but so he had a 3-bedroom, I had a 4-bedroom.
So it makes more sense
to move to ours. And then since being married, now we get a house together and it's being built.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much where we're at. And it was really just to finish out until baby girl is now done. And then once Jaya is done, then we decide, like he wants to go to the high rise on the beach. Right. That's his thing. I'm like, no, it's going to get cold at night. The view beautiful, but not at night.
But that's not what you want. Right.
Right. So, whatever it is, we'll figure that when we get to that part. But that is something very serious. So that's why I said that it's that adjustment aspect. Yeah. And I think a lot of, especially professional women, if they've never been married and went like, I want to and you moved very, like as if this was a second marriage, even though it was your first, but you had been engaged before, but even if it was your first, you had moved, it's because it was more, we tend to still protect our children.
And you're like, I don't want to make a mistake, and it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
And then I don't want to have them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so the good part is my kids love Julius. That is their father.
Yeah.
And they love them. And it makes a difference when we have that kind of...
That type of men. Yes.
It makes a huge difference.
And when they're involved and really take on that role. You can't take it for granted at all.
At all. So I do have a couple of things really quick. We're going to talk about what's one of the money mistakes that you think smart people make? Like a major money mistake.
I think thinking that it's okay to not have a plan. There are more people than you know that have enough resources that they will never run out of money, that their children will be okay.
But they don't see that.
They see it, and they feel like, oh, I'm not going to run out. They don't plan.
They don't plan.
They don't have an estate plan. They don't have certain protective measures in place because to them, they have enough money. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what goes to the IRS. It doesn't matter if they take this. I'll still be okay. My kids will still be okay. And I just come from the side of the table of being protective, being intentional. You worked hard for this, to accumulate this, and being able to see it beyond the next generation.
I'd say because you've seen it, though. You've seen it. And that's what's important. Another thing I would say, because I know it's some things that I need, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Yep. I do need to get with you.
Yeah.
But I'm very transparent. I'm
No,
so
you always
open.
have been.
Yeah, I'm
You
open.
always have been.
I'm gonna tell you the truth. Yep, I had to file bankruptcy. This was going on. I got these policies, whatever I have. But I do need to sit down because originally, in my mind, being in corporate America, it was already kind of laid
the structure
out.
was there. And that's when you're an entrepreneur, you have to create the structure.
Yes.
And so if you don't have someone holding you accountable with that, then things will slip through the cracks.
And they will.
Yeah.
And I agree.
And it's not having everything, it's just making sure that
it's
how
in place.
you want things to go is how it's spelled out, or laid out.
Luxury splurge. Is there something like you feel like
that I love?
Like that you would do a luxury splurge, or would you like invest in a splurge? Like, do you splurge on things that you want?
I like art. That's my luxury splurge.
Okay.
So I like collecting art. It's a.
But that's like you're double dipping.
Well, yeah. So that's the thing.
Yes.
It's like that's when you're saying like, should you invest or should you splurge? I feel like your splurges can be investments.
See, I love purses.
So.
But my purses I promise you, like the ones that I like, they do not depreciate
In value, right?
They value.
Yep.
And I have them, and there's been times that I get calls from the designers, and they'll ask, what would I like to sell them
sell it back. Exactly. So that is an investment. You like to travel.
And I love
maybe
to
invest in a vacation home. So I feel like splurges can be
oh my God
investments.
Okay, so that's a confirmation because don't be mad because you're gonna cringe on this.
What?
So I had a vacation home and I paid, never was late, and it's kind of still sitting there. But in the last year I haven't paid but I've never used it one day in my life.
Why?
I think because originally when I bought it was with my ex-husband, and I didn't want to mix it.
Mix it, yeah.
And when we bought it, within like a year, we were going through times. And I mean, when I say I've never like sold it off anything, and that is one of my goals, to actually figure it out, make sure the proper names is on it, and look into it or whatever, because there's no excuse. But I literally just told my husband when we were out of town, I said, I think we need to buy a vacation, buy into something. And pay into that, and then that way we can go wherever we want.
Yeah, so that's a splurge.
And it does save. So that is.
I mean, the flip side is investing in that actual company. You like cruises, buy Carnival.
Right.
You like Coca-Cola, I don't know, buy Coke. You like to go to Target. Target is some people's guilty pleasure.
Right.
Go buy Target stock, too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, find a way to where you make it make sense.
Excellent money tips.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
I love that. I love that. How do you zen when it's a crazy stock market day?
Oh, I'm going to thank my sister for this one. The alternate nostril breathing. So I still go back to the yoga techniques, the mindfulness techniques. It's the stock market is not at my control.
Absolutely.
I don't have control over the volatility or the ups and downs.
The phones is getting ready to ring.
The phones are ringing, right? So that's when I put the phone on, not the silent where I can't hear the ringing. I can see the calls though, but I don't hear the ringtone.
And then before we end, I'm going to ask you this. With Dylan having diabetes.
Yes, and the other day was World Diabetes Day, by the way.
It was, and I should know that. Hopefully my social media person posted. Because I'm sure they did. Clients with diabetes. So yesterday was, so happy World Diabetes Day. But yes, with him having diabetes, like, how has it affected you personally as far as what you look for, like, as you got older? Because you were young.
We were, I feel like we went through that together, especially not having any experience with diabetes. Right. No one on either side of our family was diabetic.
Right.
So when we got that diagnosis, I think the information initially went right over my head. And not because I couldn't understand it, but just because it didn't make sense. I had no personal experience with it. And then to learn that it was a lifelong chronic condition. Well, I say lifelong because that's what, the medical experts say. I believe that, there's a cure for everything and a solution for everything. And eventually that will come to pass. But it was just a matter of really, really taking it serious.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like taking the diagnosis serious, being very disciplined with it. When Dylan was younger And I was responsible for a lot of things, like giving him the injection. Because
Right.
before they allowed him to have an insulin pump, they made us spend a year learning how to do things the actual, I don't want to say old school, but just the regular way.
Injections.
Pricking your fingers.
Checking your
blood sugar level, giving injections, with a syringe. And that was literally every time he ate. Because at that point, you're mimicking what your pancreas naturally does for yourself. So at some point, I became I feel like a nurse or an endocrinologist because, he was so young. I had to keep track of all the carbohydrates he ate. I would write down every meal he had, how many carbs, the insulin dosages, in a composition book, to the point where at some point I could call the endocrinologist and say, I think he needs this much more insulin. I could predict what was the dosages that needed to change.
Because kids love carbs, for one.
Because kids love carbs, and it's they need carbohydrates also to grow.
Right.
So you can't eliminate, you can't say, why don't you just stop eating carbs? Because there are so many different forms of carbohydrates. Right. There's good carbs, there's bad carbs. An apple has the same amount of carbs as 2 chocolate chip cookies. Right. So it's about choices. So making sure I instilled that in him, making the right choices, being disciplined. But then, adolescence crept in. Yeah. They warn you about that when you go, though. They say, males, deal with it differently than females. And then once they become preteen and in their teenage years, there may be a time where they rebel against the condition. Right. So we experienced that when he was in middle school. We experienced him going the whole day without checking his blood sugar level or not going to the nurse's office. Why? Because
he didn't want people to know.
He didn't want people to know. 2, think about a 12, 13-year-old boy. How long is nutrition? 15, 20 minutes.
10 minutes.
Do you think you want to walk across an entire middle school campus as a 12 or 13-year-old boy, go to the nurse's office, prick your finger, check your blood sugar level, wait for this old lady, because nurses are always old ladies.
And now there's not even any nurses on the campus.
Wait for them to say, no, you need to wait and give yourself more insulin because your blood sugar level is too high. Him sit there for the whole nutrition, miss nutrition or lunch plan, because all he wants to do is play basketball with his friends. That's it.
Yes.
So he stopped going. He stopped doing it. He stopped going. And that, of course, it causes other issues. Like when you have your blood sugar level is high for so long, that's when you start to see the effects of having the condition. So
and that's common.
And again, that's life.
And he's cute.
But the thing is,
now he's liking the girls.
Adults do the same. Adults have the same rebellion towards diagnoses. It's not just what I mean, exclusive to kids or teens. Absolutely. Or if someone got diagnosed in their 50s or 60s,
they don't want to do it.
They don't want to. It's hard to make changes. It's hard to change your lifestyle. It's hard to stay disciplined with managing
because you're already setting your ways.
Yep. So just giving people grace. For how they accept those things.
So what's your financial superpower? What would you think? One word.
One word about my financial superpower.
But not necessarily just one sentence. What's your superpower?
Cautiously optimistic.
I love it.
Yes. Don't rush into a lot of things. Don't try to get in on the latest, greatest trends, but be optimistic about cycles. Okay. Everything moves in cycles. Yes. Everything is there's an opportunity, even when something seems bleak. Okay. We just came out of a high interest rate environment. People were saying, I can't buy a house. I don't want to get a loan. But guess what? When interest rates are high, you can save. Yep. You're getting paid to save. So that's an opportunity.
So you're ready.
So when the next cycle hits, you're ready. You saving or putting your cash in interest-bearing vehicles is another source of income.
Okay.
Because that interest is compounding. So everything is an opportunity, whether it seems, good or bad, or a bleak situation.
Cash or card? So this is the rapid little questions.
Yes, we're gonna do the lightning round.
Yes, this is the lightning round.
This will really determine my generation, I guess.
Yes.
No, I prefer. Well, does my debit card count as cash? Because you mean cash or credit card?
Cash or credit card?
Oh no, cash.
Okay. Your biggest money flex?
Buying my house before they built SoFi.
Yes.
That was a flex. That's
a flex.
Yes.
And what about Okay, so I have a question because see, I'm a card person, but I pay every card off before it's due.
So I feel like I said
So
that
I can
because
get the
you
rewards
want the
and the
reward,
perks.
you want the points.
Yes.
But most people don't do that, so I can't say that.
That's why I asked. Okay, so I was just saying,
most people don't pay off the whole thing.
If you pay off,
then yes,
credit
and
card,
you like the points.
Yes. So
in the
every
rewards.
card cycle, my card cycle says 0
balance.
due.
Okay.
So it allows me an extra 30 days, and then when it's really due.
Yeah.
So I double dip off of the interest per se, and then I pay it off, or off the benefits, I guess. So it kind of takes me out that 60, like 45 day cycle. So yes, okay. Dream retirement spot.
Ooh. Not in America. I feel like someplace like maybe like Costa Rica.
Okay.
I know Portugal is a new hotspot now too. You know what I mean? Like someplace outside of outside of here.
Best purchase under $100.
I love things on sale. Best purchase.
I like a good sale.
Me too. Under $100. What could I say? Under 100.
No, it's not in
That's
our
hard
budget.
these days. You know what my new thing is?
What?
The farmer's market.
Okay.
So everything there is, you know what I mean?
You're still only spending about $99.
Yep.
So, okay. What's the most expensive mistake you ever made? But you learned from. You did learn. What would you think the most?
My credit in my early 20s.
Yes.
Not paying things on time. Getting credit cards, charging them up, letting them get closed or going to collection.
Whatever, yeah. Collections, like, I'll get back to that next week.
It's like, was Target really worth that?
Right.
Worth that $250 credit limit? No,
because that's all they gave you.
That's all they gave me.
Yes, at that time, because you were getting.
It was my early 20s, but it was not worth it.
But we weren't mature enough to understand. And so, because I felt like even when I filed bankruptcy, I was angry because I was at my prime. I had got out of debt from my 20s. I did not have to. I had a couple collections where I got them changed around, 700 credit score, then boom. See, but now I'm at that 842. So it's a whole because I'm like
back with a vengeance.
Say what I mean what I say. You know, so, and last impulse buy.
An impulse buy.
Have you ever had an? Because you're very calculated. You're very structured.
I am structured in a sense, but not necessarily impulsive. But you know, one thing I love perfume.
Okay.
Like Baccarat, Le Labo. Like I love expensive perfume.
Me too, Delina.
So that's my thing. Yeah. Perfumes.
Okay.
I like to smell rich.
Fun question. If your money management style was a song, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. There's so many. Probably Rick Ross every day. I'm hustling.
Every day I'm hustling. Well, if we doing Rick Ross, mine is Maybach music.
But then, you know, I just, every time I think about that song, I think of that Cat Williams scare. You know, when he was doing it with the, like that to me, I think applies across my entire career.
So.
Literally.
And he was, and I agree. So, okay. So now it is time for you to write your best gem.
My best gem.
Into the gem box. So you have to lift it on up.
Let's see.
Grab the pen.
I love these.
And.
Okay.
I definitely want to thank it because the
you
gem
got this
box.
pink pen.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I mean, you know, and I have on green and you have on green, so you kind of came a little bit. It is for the money, like AKA, it's for the money. Now let's. And I know you're a Delta, you guys. This is my D9 sister, and you know it's okay. And when at the end of the day. We all about sisterhood. We all about lifting each other up. We all about supporting one another. So even though she wears red, she still wears pearls.
Look at those nails. I love those nails.
And I did it for you, actually. I'm not even kidding you. I said I knew it was gonna come up because, honey, I'm always pink nails or green nails or something. But yes. But it's the holidays too, so Maybe I did it for
Just tell the
Christmas.
truth.
So I want to thank you for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, sharing the pearls and the wisdom
Yes.
of money, not just money management, but like money wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone wants to connect with you, we will definitely share all your platforms.
Please do.
We will. And we will make sure that they are aware of how to find you. And one thing I will say, you will pick up the phone. You will help anyone.
Yes.
So do not get discouraged. Do not worry about how much money you make or don't make. It's never too late to invest. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
and I
you.
appreciate you, sister. And we have something amazing for you.
Aw.
So
I thought you was going to get barbecue.
she did. And we give you your
Thank
flowers while you are
you.
alive.
Oh, thank you.
In a basket.
Oh, I love it.
A
Thank
wellness basket for self-care.
Thank you.
What an incredible journey that Andrea Collins took us on. We all know it is so refreshing to not just get some money wealth tips, but to be able to probably put them in perspective and use them wisely. From smart investing to building generational wealth, Andrea's tips wasn't just about saving or investing, but creating a journey and being able to leave a legacy for her family as well as yours. So until next time, thank you so much for joining me in the Care Den. Take care. Have a great one.